Leverage Redemption comes to IMDb TV, and the con is on and more exciting than ever. The team reunites as they take justice into their own hands, not to mention adding a few new exciting recruits. For this crew, the stealing is mutual. There's no shortage of bad guys, and the con game has only gotten more complicated. Don't miss out on the action-packed heist and discover why crime is fun when you're the good guys. Leverage Redemption, now streaming free on IMDb TV. IMDb TV is available on Fire TV, Roku, or anywhere Prime Video is available.
We're talking about podcasts. We're talking about itty bitty podcasts or podcasts.
Merry Mini Monday, Chunkies. I'm Carter.
I'm Doge.
I'm Jordan, and I always love when I hear the end of Carter singing because he unmutes at that exact moment.
Is it just
It never gets? Yep. It's always just like yo. It never gets old.
That one was triumphant. That sounded like you were singing
It felt
that
triumphant.
while a king got home.
Yeah.
Like you were like on both sides of the castle road.
So full disclosure, I thought about trying to do this one to like the tune of the Loki theme, but it's a little too what's the word I'm looking for? Ethereal. To sing.
Love that Loki soundtrack, a notoriously singable melody.
Yeah.
It's just like
So good.
like I don't know how to do it. Episode 5, guys. There's only the next episode that we have talking about Loki will be its season finale, and in
Such
the
a
best
bummer.
way possible. I'm really sad.
Yeah.
This is a really good show. I think around episode 4 is just past halfway. And I think when you're watching a show, those of us that have consumed a lot of television shows, that's about the point that you say, hey, you know what? No matter what, this is going to be good. Like, even if I'm let down here, this is considered a good show. Game of Thrones was a massive letdown in the last season, but fortunately an excusable letdown. We know why it didn't work out, right? And so it's like, there's some grace there. There's a chance that someday I'll go through seasons 1 through 5 again.
Not
Maybe,
for me. There
because
is
I
no
enjoy
grace.
I know.
The North remembers. There is no grace.
The North remembers. But I think with Loki, especially after episode 5, this has potential to be maybe a top 10 season of a show for me personally, because I'm having an absolute blast. I'm going to jump straight into my super pump for our 5th episode of Loki. It's so strange, and it's only going to be just kind of a passing by. But sometimes at the end of careers, we're thrown into something that it feels like, is this what you were made for? Richard Grant he's
also my super pump.
The
Mine
OG
too.
Loki, y'all, when he's doing his spectral, when he is making Asgard, I can't help but think when you've got like an old guy, an old hat coming back, Shakespearean vibe, to do something kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
I couldn't help but think of Obi-Wan, old Ben Kenobi.
Sure.
But he hated it. He absolutely hated having to do it. But Richard Grant feels like he was having a blast. His triumphant scream into the heavens or into hell or whatever it is right before we lose him was a moment, y'all.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Bumps.
So good. Man, I loved him as classic Loki.
Bumps.
I want to see, like,
Loki.
I think there exists a coin, and Richard E. Grant as classic Loki is one side of that coin. And the venerable Sir Ian McKellen in Cats is the other side of that coin.
Yes.
Oh, no.
Where with Richard E. Grant, it's like, oh my gosh, this is perfect. And with Sir Ian McKellen, it's like,
oh my gosh, this is
poor grandpa.
Perfect.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Ew. No fun. But I know I'm jumping to the end of like what's the best part about this episode for me. But this was wild. And again, we're getting not too many of these episodes are cut in by credits as they had for their first 2 installments with Falcon and the Winter Soldier and WandaVision. And so we did get a good, pretty dense 45 minutes.
That's true.
Where it just, are you going to be surprised if we don't see Kang the Conqueror in the finale?
Oh, actually, no.
You're not going to be surprised.
Okay,
tell me about what is this place? What is this when we finally charm I keep wanting to say Malekith. That's not right. What is the name of this creature? Eliath, who has ties to Kang the Conqueror, right? From the comics.
Yes.
but Alioth is this void that has kind of maybe conquered a timeline or cannot be hurt by a timeline, but it just kind of eats up stuff. It's this massive, it reminds me of Brave Little Toaster when we had the big magnet that was coming down to just try and get you in this.
You've unlocked a childhood trauma in me from that magnet. Wow.
Sorry.
For me, Brave Little Toaster, the trauma all comes from the AC unit.
When the AC commits suicide? Oh my goodness gracious.
It's brutal, man.
That is brutal.
Wow, we need to do a Brave Little Toaster series.
No,
no thanks. No thanks.
No, we do. It's called Toastmasters. We
somebody educate me a little bit on, because we can go into our Lokidom
real quick.
Because there's a million Lokis in this episode.
There's so many Easter eggs in this. In this episode, we're not going to touch them all, so don't be like they don't know stuff. We know stuff.
Yeah,
I saw all of them the first time. I didn't have to rewind or pause. I'm just kidding. But there's a lot in this episode. But
LOL at the Thanoscopter. Never ever thought that would make it in the MCU.
Very
That's funny.
Now, the big smoke monster whose name once again escapes me.
Alioth.
So I did look it up.
Alioth is what you said last time.
Yeah, I've just always said Alioth in my brain from comic books, but now they say Alioth out loud, and it really bums me out.
So. That's like when I watched the Aragon movie and I had always said Sapphira in the books and it's Saphira and now I can't get it away. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
And there it is. You hit your quota. Yeah, one Aragon reference per episode. You got it.
No, it's Zelda. One Zelda per episode. It's one Aragon per quarter.
If you're trying to tell me in your preteens you read that as Hermione, you're lying to me.
Right.
Oh, Hermione.
Now, Alioth,
from
the big
ET.
smoke boy, Elliot from ET, is definitely tied to Kang. And there's one more reference that really makes me feel like there's a good chance that it is Kang, and besides time, obviously. But there is a building in the background, QENG Industries.
King.
And I guess I caught it watching the episode, but I didn't know the connection until I Googled it. And the connection, I guess, is it was a company in the comics that at the end it was revealed that the CEO was Kang in disguise or was like being mind controlled by Kang, one or the other.
So Kang is a long way in the future descendant of Reed Richards, Mr. Fantastic. Jonathan Richards is his name. He was through like a glitch in time. He was trapped in the early 21st century and decided, I don't want to sit around and wait for 2,000 years to become the most powerful being in the whole time stream again. So adopted the alias Mr. Griffin, started a company called Kang Enterprises. Tony Stark sold Avengers Tower, Stark Tower, to Mr. Griffin. So it became Kang Tower.
Yeah. Dang. So that's something. But, I think that there's a lot here. And this might be spoiler territory if it's correct. But so far, the most plausible theory that I have read for it to be Kang is that that Kang is the reason that the timeline leads to him and is like the true timeline is because Loki creates the TVA in some way, and that the reason he can do it is because it's the Loki from the timeline where Thanos left to come to our timeline to fight the Avengers. And so it's a Loki in a timeline without a Thanos, so nothing kills him. He grows old, creates the TVA, and then that eventually leads to Kang, so that it'll be like an old Loki in the castle at the end, but that Kang really is the one pulling the strings. That feels pretty plausible to me.
Yeah.
Wow.
But again, at this point, I'm really trying to go into this final episode with as open hands as humanly possible.
That's the hard thing, is to not let it run away from me, because immediately when I saw the castle, I was like, okay, there's two important castles in Marvel Comics. There's Immortus's castle at the end of time. Immortus is also Kang.
And then there's a lot of names. Immortus is like good Kang, though. Immortus is like Kang that learned some lessons.
It's Kang who learned the power of love. Don't take money. Don't.
Wonderful.
Wow, that's a secret reference to our Patreon series right now. The secret reference to Back to the Future, the power of love. The other important castle is Castle Doom, Dr. Doom's castle in Latveria. There's virtually no way that it's Dr. Doom.
No, I don't think so.
There's virtually no way. Listen to me, though.
It'd be so sick.
There's a little way.
It'd be so sick.
There's a little tiny way that it could be Dr. Doom.
A little tiny way. That's funny. Do you think the TVA is in like the microverse?
The quantum realm? Yeah.
The quantum realm?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Completely.
I mean, it's a possibility for sure.
For my boys that have a better eye for like computer generated images, how do you feel about how Alioth looks?
I think the CG was pretty good. The compositing, like where smoke is flying in front of and behind our leads is not awesome, but the CG itself is pretty good.
I thought Goliath looked better than the environment.
Yeah.
I thought the environment looked okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
I thought Goliath looked awesome.
I wonder if they're using the volume, the thing that they made for The Mandalorian. Have you guys watched that stuff?
Well, I know
wonder if
that's
they're
basically
shooting there.
Disney IP.
Yeah.
Like Disney owns that thing at this
it
point.
Would feel
using it for
goofy
everything.
not to use it.
Right.
Yeah, that was like a convenient for COVID, but I think they're going to use it forever because it's pretty brilliant. It's pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
But saw a bunch of Lokis in this one too. Well, let's say we also saw another iteration of Thor. And it's funny because had I not done research on trying to figure out what alligator Loki was, I wouldn't have known at first that was going after Mjolnir was
Throg.
a little Throg, which was so fun. So fun to see.
Do you think they did that on purpose? Like I wonder how much
I bet they just
hedging
picked a
their
random
bets they
frog
did.
and they were like, I wonder if he could be Thor. It probably
they were
wasn't.
like, let's put him in a jar. Let's see how good he looks in a cape and a hat. No, I wonder if they were very confident people would end up Googling alligator Loki and that Google's algorithm would lead them to Throg. So then they could put Throg in the next episode.
This area, so where we went post pruning, feels like kind of when we walked into the collector's domain.
Yeah.
You get to do whatever you want. You get to just we got Howard the Duck in that one. It's like,
yeah.
Cool. Like that's just fun. The MCU is this big circus of characters, so why not? Nobody's going to fault you for that.
This Void thing is just about the most comic booky thing I've ever seen. I kept looking for little cool things. I mean, we got the Dark Aster. We got a shield helicarrier that looks to have a Hydra logo on it.
Yeah.
If this was comics, there would absolutely be a big Sentinel head or hand, the mutant hunting giant bots, but this isn't comics and we haven't introduced Sentinels yet, but we did get the head of what looks to be a statue of the Living Tribunal.
Yeah.
Which is the second most powerful being in all of comics for Marvel. The only one more powerful is the one over all or the one above all, quite literally God in Marvel Comics.
Right.
So this statue of this character, it's at least interesting. I don't think we'll ever do anything with the Living Tribunal. It's pretty
wild,
pretty comic booky, but it was cool to see a little bit of representation.
Yeah, at that point, that would be pretty wild.
Yeah.
It's definitely a fun grab bag of just kind of doing whatever you want. And it kind of makes sense for us to be in this episode 5 of Loki. And then within the week, we have our first trailer for What If. It feels like a lot. Let's take 2 minutes. How do y'all feel about What If, the series?
It looks very interesting. It looks very fun. There's something in my brain that I'm going to have to overcome the hurdle of it doesn't matter in my brain. There's a part of my brain that's a little who cares because it's it's not actually really connected to.
Yeah. We'll talk more about that part of my brain tomorrow. That's a tease for tomorrow's episode.
Sure. But yeah, there's just a part of my brain that I'm going to have to overcome the feeling of it's cool, but it's just going to be a 20-minute of oh, that's awesome. And I'll never see it again.
Yeah. I think there's a small chance they rope it into being important and that each of these is a multiverse that Loki creates at the end of his show. And we might see some hints of this stuff in live action and Multiverse of Madness, but that is a long shot. I really, really doubt they're going to go that way. That would be the way to get me to super, super care about what happens in it, though.
I'm still very interested, though.
Yeah, you're going to watch the show.
Oh, completely.
100.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Same. Okay.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be really fun.
Coming back to Loki. Everybody's back in a way that is not offensive to me. I think it's okay that we are pruned. It should still feel pretty permanent because anyone who's been pruned before, from what we know, has not come back. So to have Sylvie, it was fun that Mobius was driving the pizza car.
Yes.
Felt shades of Christoph Waltz from Django.
When he rolled up.
I felt shades of the dentist strange thing from the Tarantino.
It's because of the thing on top. That's why.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's just going back and forth. But good to have Mobius back.
Big time good to have Mobius back.
You can't help in a 6-episode season for things to feel like the narrative is beginning to fly. I'm not surprised the pace of the storytelling is much quicker than it was at the beginning. But I think with a structure like the TVA, I needed it to be slow. Personally, as the viewer, I needed to be slow at the beginning to be like, what is this? To build the relationship, especially between not just Loki and Sylvie, that we got a whole episode to do that, but between Loki and Mobius.
Let's real quick, if we don't mind, let's talk about Renslayer.
Yeah.
What are you guys buying what she's selling? Is she
Not at all.
confused or is she completely in the know?
I think she's confused. I think she doesn't know. I think she was much like every other person in the TVA, dropped into an eternal state of, I work here. I've always worked here. I will always work here. Here's my mission. It's always been my mission. I think she's also trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I think she's still very much holding on to her job more than anybody else.
I think that too. There's just something about the way that she's interacting with the situation that makes me feel like she definitely knows more than she's letting on. I don't know if that means she knows everything, but let me put it this way. I'm not going to be surprised to find out that even when she looked like she was turning, it was an act and she's way more in control than it seemed like she was.
Oh yeah. I think the turn was an act.
No,
but I think it was
her
in
turn
service
with Sylvie,
of,
but I mean, even because she's even saying like, I still don't know what's going on, even though I was acting to get your guard down. I'm not going to be shocked if the whole thing is an act.
If it turns out she does know exactly what's going on, who created the TVA, all that stuff.
Well, it just seems like her and Miss Minutes got a thing going right now where they're really trying to protect whatever's in that castle. And how would she know that castle's there?
I don't think she knows. I think she knows there's something at the end of time right there. But when she's talking to Miss Minutes, she was like, we need to, whoever they are, they're in trouble. I don't think she knows who they are.
I don't know that she knows who they are either, but I think she knows that they are her boss.
Yeah.
We've got some, we even saw the TVA operatives kind of be shook by Sylvie pruning herself.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think Renslayer is kind of catching that. I think everybody's willing to turn right now. I think anybody who knows what's going on with the Loki variants is like, what the heck? Especially, of course, in our maximum security time prison.
Yeah.
Another wonderful, only 2 or 3 minutes of her, but B-15 is killing it right now.
Yeah.
Of just the questions that she had and the acting that she's doing. I think we get to super dump at the end of the series. We get to kind of do a super dump and super pump for the whole series.
Mm-hmm.
I think a super dump for me would be unfair of the one that I'm thinking of because I don't get to know if there's a payoff. If we get through Loki and of all the characters that I do feel like we'll see again from this series, if B-15 is never seen again, that's a super dump for me, but I can't predict the future.
Sure.
I think it's going to be a big bummer if B-15 only existed here. That is, I don't get to know that until the end of the 6th episode.
Sure.
There could be a reason that she never comes back. But
while we're speculating about things that we might not like, and I don't know, they could find a way to do it that I would be fine with. But if this thing ends with a tidy bow on it and doesn't end with blowing the whole thing wide open, and now it's like anything could happen from this point, like I feel like a show like this, with what they're leading to with Multiverse of Madness and apparently what's happening in Spider-Man, like this series needs to be the door flying open, not closing it and we'll reopen it later. You know what I mean? Like if this series ends and it's like, we figured it out, but there's a leak somewhere. Yeah, maybe. But I feel like the series needs to end essentially standing on the edge of a cliff going, what have we done?
Yeah. I don't know though. Cause I think the primary responsibility, we talked about this a little bit with WandaVision.
Right.
Like the primary responsibility of these shows is to tell a story about the title character.
Agreed.
And I think like, I got into trouble speculating like a bunch of stuff was going to happen in WandaVision that would have essentially turned that show into a sizzle reel of like, hey, here's the stuff we're going to be doing for the next 10 years and not really told a Wanda and Vision story.
Yeah, but I think WandaVision did a good job of telling a Wanda and Vision story, wrapping that up, but then the end of it didn't wrap up the Scarlet Witch story. It blew that wide open and now it's like, what's she going to do? I'm saying if we tie up a Loki, Sylvie, his adventure here is done. It's not like he has more work to do necessarily with the TV or whatever, but the proverbial door of the multiverse is blown wide open.
Yeah, sure.
That was Wanda's book study a mid-credit scene, or was that at the end of the episode? Okay.
I think it was a credit scene.
I would not be. Loki's credit scene is going to be massive.
I think so too, man.
Is going to be a big deal.
It's to the point where with Marvel movies, I almost look forward to the mid-credit scene as much as anything else in the movie.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I think that's part of the never-ending. Like these movies can't ever let off the gas in terms of of the hype culture. Like 50% of the reason these movies exist is to advertise the next big thing.
Right.
Yeah.
50% of the reason.
Feels important to at least, it's a tease. People know that we're talking about Black Widow tomorrow. I want to at least say, 97% of the people in my theater stayed.
Yeah.
You know, there were
100%,
people just kind of guffawing at the 3 people that decided to just leave.
Who are
like, do you not
Yeah.
understand what's
Right.
happening right now? But
Now, while we're talking about what's coming up, the thing that's coming up right now is an advertisement.
Oh, now they need to see my birth certificate. Honey, where do we keep the birth certificates?
Why?
Buying socks?
Socks. I'll check upstairs.
It's easy to be unsafe online.
You're the best!
Now it's easy to help protect yourself. Norton 360 with LifeLock gives you device security, a VPN for online privacy, and identity theft protection, all in one. Opt in to cyber safety. Save 25% or more off your first year at norton.com/news.
Leverage Redemption comes to IMDb TV, and the con is on and more exciting than ever. The team reunites as they take justice into their own hands, not to mention adding a few new exciting recruits. For this crew, the stealing is mutual. There's no shortage of bad guys, and the con game has only gotten more complicated. Don't miss out on the action-packed heist and discover why crime is fun when you're the good guys. Leverage Redemption, now streaming free on IMDb TV. IMDb TV is available on Fire TV, Roku, or anywhere Prime Video is available.
we had lots of Lokis. We had a lot of fun Lokis. I did not know. So when I saw the previews before Loki even came around, and honestly, this was a preview that wasn't just for Loki, but it was for everything that Marvel and sometimes everything that Disney Plus had to offer. The what did you expect, from President Loki? Mm-hmm. I didn't know that that was actually a variant of Loki. In my head this whole time, I was waiting for our current Loki to get to a point to where he was running for office in some way, but
I kind of was too. I didn't know it was going to be a variant.
I fully thought they were going to go the comic route. There is, existing outside of time, there is a council of Reeds. It's a bunch of Reed Richardses from all across the multiverse who get together and sort of govern. Say what you will about the show. Rick and Morty sort of stole this with the Council of Ricks. And I thought Marvel was poised to steal it back with the Council of Lokis, but yeah, I definitely did not expect that this was not our Tom, but a different Tom, both alike in dignity.
Have you guys watched Rick? I've never watched Rick and Morty.
I've watched like an episode, I think. An episode or two, maybe.
I think I got halfway through season 1, was really enjoying it, but it was the kind of thing to where, because there's so much of it, it totally feels like a visit back. Yeah. It feels like that's kind of how I am with, and again, I don't want to put these exactly in the same realm because I know y'all very much love Clone Wars and that series, but that's what that has been for me. When there's so much content I missed when it was new, it's tough.
It's overwhelming to try and go back.
It's Airbender. It's Rick and Morty. There's real big shows like that, which I know I have plenty of that are religion for me.
Sure.
But I just somehow miss some of these. But Sylvie has to keep being in the Marvel universe, right?
Completely. I feel that way.
There's no way she's not. She's got some potential to be, and I can't help but bring it up a few times because it's on my mind with the final episode en route, but it feels like she could very well be my super pump for the entire series.
Yeah, completely.
I've really enjoyed her, and I think that was a special pull. That's not even a Florence Pugh thing for Black Widow because Pugh is known already. This is a young lady that I had no idea existed until this series, and she's owned it, and I've been really happy with it. Continuing in this episode.
Well, if you're looking at all of it, it seems like right now what's happening in Marvel is a lot of, and I'll just keep the discussion to Falcon and Winter Soldier and Loki for right now, but it seems like what we're getting is a lot of analogs. So like Sylvie as kind of a Loki analog and John Walker as a Cap analog. Like we're getting a lot of analogs for pre-existing characters. It just seems like that's sort of a direction we're heading. So I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes very important for any number of reasons that many characters have somebody else who can fill that void.
I'm telling you, Secret Avengers / Thunderbolts. It's
awesome.
coming.
It would be awesome.
Is everybody the Thunderbolts? What's going to be the difference here? Because it's like, we'll talk more about this tomorrow, but I would expect Jane to actually take on the helm of Thor and be an Avenger. Like, who's going to be an Avenger and who's a Thunderbolt? Or is a rift in all of this Valentina trying to fury her way in and catch people beforehand?
So I think we're going to probably get some sort of Avengers versus Thunderbolts. Oh, take a look. You're in my nook. You're in my theory nook. I think we're probably going to get some sort of Avengers versus Thunderbolts type of deal in the next 5 or 6 years.
Is that this big phase's Civil War? I don't want to say phase because I know 1 through 3 was the Infinity Saga, right? So
Yeah.
it's like with all of our Avenger movies, which again, I know Civil War is not technically an Avenger movie, that's a Captain America movie. I wonder if it's like we're going to fight each other, but then ultimately fight together against
Could
the big
be.
bad.
Could very well
could be.
I don't know. It's so much fun to speculate, and I find myself being this feels like how I've been with League of Legends. I jumped into this world that I didn't know too much about, but I enjoyed it and became a student. And then to the point to where it feels like maybe I'm past intermediate and I'm starting to be able to have, I have out of body experiences like this when I throw out theories that you guys could believe. You know,
You did it.
It's another one of those moments where you're like, oh yeah. You know, if I ever feel like you haven't thought about it before, but you're amused by it, I'm in. Like that makes me.
That could totally be a way to tie the two, because really it feels like the MCU, the meta narrative is moving in two directions. There's the multiverse side of things that seems to be set up by WandaVision, Loki, probably Doctor Strange and Spider-Man. And then there's the more terrestrial.
Real quick, I would say definitely Doctor Strange at least.
I don't know if Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness is really going to heavily feature the multiverse. We'll have to see when we get there.
Or Madness.
Or Madness. Or even Doctor Strange. We really can't know.
Who's to say?
But then there's also the more terrestrial sort of government side of things that was championed by Falcon and the Winter Soldier, by certain things in a certain movie, certain pod boys we'll talk about on a certain episode tomorrow.
Sure.
There's also the Immortals, which is a movie that we get this year.
Yeah.
That is
a wild card.
So far,
above
The Immortals is the movie on the docket, like on the coming soon docket, that I am the most like, I got no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah, and I'm going to be really upset with myself for this. But what is the name of Idris Elba's character?
Idris Elba.
From Thor.
Oh, Heimdall.
Yeah, it feels like a Heimdall thing for me with the Immortals. It's someone who's kind of been able to watch and see everything that they wanted to. That's demigod-ish, you know, that's just going to be like, what is their role later? I have no idea. But all that to say. I think also a part of my out-of-body experience is that I skip lunch. Do you ever get the feels where you get that weird energy from being hungry?
Yep.
And you get a little lightheaded? So
I think that's fight or flight.
I had an I had a late morning bowl of Cinnamon Life cereal.
Life. I haven't thought about life.
I know. It's really good.
That's deep.
It's really good.
That's deep, y'all. I don't know.
It's really
I had
good.
3 big tacos right before we started recording, and I've got the taco sleepies right now. So I'm like having to
we're on opposite ends.
Breakfast
right
tacos?
really punch it up. No, they were lunch tacos. I had them at like $11.50.
Do we have anything that we want to make sure that we touch on before we start to wrap this one up from this episode, from episode 5?
I wish that Mobius's reveal had been him whipping the car around and being like, need a lift? I don't know. It just felt like for how awesome it was that he was driving the car with the pizza on top. I could have used a little more of like a cinematic, like, hop in, we gotta go, you know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, the reveal that he was still alive was sort of underwhelming to me.
It was a little bit.
You know, we knew,
but it was really understated, I think.
Yeah.
They kind of underplayed it.
Something fun, unintentional, probably. But like we have a Loki verse here. There's also outside of time and space an Owen verse. There's this kind of part of us tipping our hat to Mobius is it feels like hardly anything that Owen Wilson has ever done before. And he would say in the media junket of this that he was kind of a fish out of water, and it took Tom Hiddleston some time to kind of coach him a little bit. Here's what to expect in the MCU. It's like this kind of thing that you weren't asking for, like the Jodie Fosters of the world right now, the Megan Foxes of the world. If you read anything in the news on any of the clickbait, it's somebody who wants in to the MCU.
Sure.
You know,
who doesn't?
Whether they had said they wanted to or not, they're back. They're like, okay, let's do it. But there was a moment where Mobius says now instead of wow.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, there he is.
Yeah.
There's him. There's him.
Owen.
Is that a joke at himself? But no, it's just a word that rhymes with wow.
It took me out of the movie a little bit whenever he stepped through the door and Loki's like, what are you going to do with the TVA? And he's like, I'm going to burn it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, there he is. I'm going to burn it down.
Loving Mobius, though. I don't know.
I'm going to burn it down.
The part where Mobius was like, grow up, Peter Pan, Count Chocula. I was like, wow.
I'm realizing it is a show put in a special category for me if I have at least 2 characters that I'm in on. I really want to find out what is their narrative? Like what's their story? And I've got Mobius and Sylvia. I even have Loki, who I thought I knew really well. And it's a really interesting thing for me. To end this episode, Remind me the name of our clock, our cute little
Miss Minutes.
our little fall.
Tara Strong from she's Harley Quinn in just about everything that's ever been animated.
She's like voiceover royalty,
yes,
right?
Sure.
Big time. I think she was one of the Powerpuff Girls.
Amazing.
She's done so much stuff, dude.
Amazing. I want y'all to give me your name to end this episode.
Sure.
And also which actually, before I say this, in a penultimate episode, I always have to throw it out there to try and
I love
make
how
up
obsessed
for.
you are with the word penultimate. It makes me
Penultimate's
so happy.
good now because now I get it.
Yeah.
Now I understand what it is. And I'm wondering how long I went. It's kind of around the time that I thought that placebo and placenta were the same word. And now the rest of my life is trying to make up for all the wrongs that I've done.
Man, I could take a sugar pill and I'd be totally fine. I'm real susceptible to the placenta effect.
To the placenta. You don't know how close. Every time I talked about Space Jam, I talked about the placenta that was the water that they would drink.
Yeah,
Michael's secret stuff was the placenta. I don't know. To end this episode, I'd love to have your name and give me a replacement for who is your mascot for the TVA. It can't be Miss Minutes.
Okay.
Who's it going to be? Okay. We're still going to have them in this wonderful kind of projection. Miss Minutes has been great. I've loved how she was looking through the files.
Yep.
Right? Just kind of just playing her game.
Yep.
So
I've got my answer. I've never been more sure of anything in my whole life, actually. You ever do that thing where you get something so good, you start to get nervous somebody else is going to say it first because you're going not first?
Well, I'm like legitimately nervous that I'm going to take it. I don't want to take it from you because I'm first here. You know? You're last.
I'm last, I know.
Oof. I'm Carter, and it's Dr. Day.
Ooh, nice.
It's a little sunshine projection with a stethoscope. There you go. I'm just going to give you that. That's all.
I love that.
I'm Doge. The new and improved mascot from the TVA rebrand is a small boy with a blue blanket drawn by Chuck Schultz, and his name is Time Linus.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, the TVA's new mascot, I'm Jordan, first of all, and the TVA's new mascot.
You're Jordan and the TVA's new mascot?
And the TVA's new mascot. The TVA's new mascot,
It's me,
the thing
Jordan.
about him is that you actually smell him first. You smell what he's cooking because the new mascot is Dwayne the Clock Johnson.
Oh,
Yes. I think that's all we need,
just two giant muscle arms going around the clock.
it's
cocked
Miss Minutes
eyebrow.
just with the muscle arms.
Yep, and the cocked eyebrow.
And a cocked eyebrow.
Yep.
Yeah, a clocked
Dwayne
eyebrow.
the
A clocked eyebrow. I knew.
Do you smell what the clock is ticking?
Dude, that laugh was just Scooby-Doo.